joining us today, we've got Paul Besley, who has just done a book to Walking in the White Peak East. It's the second book he's done for Cicerone, and he's here to introduce it, tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll ask some questions at the end. So if anybody's got any questions at all, just send it to us by email or Facebook or Twitter or whatever method you can use. If you haven't been able to join us live today, we will put this on YouTube later on, unless it is completely awful, and then we'll speak no more of it. The other thing to mention is that Paul is an active member of Mountain Rescue and may have to dash off at any time if he gets a call out. Hopefully people are respecting the advice not to go into the mountains. So hopefully that won't be an issue, but we have to just warn people that might be a problem. And if it is, then he will just say bye and dash off, and we'll catch up with him another time. So for now, I'll pass you over to Paul. And Paul, if you want to introduce the book and tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm Paul Besley. I live in Sheffield, probably about 5 minutes over the border from the Peak District National Park. So we're very close to it. This is the book. There you go. There's White Peak Walks East. And there's a reason why it's got that title. Because it covers the eastern sheet of the White Peak of OS map. OL24, I had to check then whether it was OL24. And we've done it that way because it just makes it easier for navigating around the area using the map. You're not having to try and find half of the walk on the other side of the sheet. So that's how we've done it. It's taken 2 years to produce. There are 42 walks, 35 walks that range from 6 miles up to 15 miles, and then there's 7 longer walks and trails and some circular walks. There's a very long circular walk, about 60 miles, and that does have 3 pubs where you can stop overnight, which is quite useful. The White Peak is my first book was Dark Peak, which is the northern part of the Peak District, which is Gritstone, Peak, High Moorland, very big skies, long days with sometimes very hard walking, can be particularly hard in winter, and very little in terms of human interaction. Dark Peak's an area that has very few communities. The White Peak is very different. White Peak's limestone, so the geography of the Peak District is limestone is the bed, which was really the tropical sea when the area sat on the equator and is gradually moving north. And the limestone's made up of billions and billions and trillions of little sea creatures. Overlaying that was the gritstone, which was basically the outflow of the Rhine, and that was sand, and that overlaid it. In the White Peak, the gritstone's gone, and so it's been exposed again. And it's full of hills and dales. The dales tend to have clear streams in them, and you're quite often walking on the roof of an eroded cave in the dales. It's actually the roof that you're walking on because the water has eroded everything from underneath. It's a very pastoral land. It's got a deep history with farming, particularly sheep farming. Monastic granges litter the White Peak. But it goes much further back than that. Some of the oldest artefacts in the country can be found in the White Peak. So it goes right back to Neolithic, and you can often find Neolithic burial chambers and Bronze Age burial chambers. Lots of stone circles, lots of settlements that have now just disappeared into the fields. So it's full of history. And the Normans, when they arrived, they colonised it quite well and set up lots of different sort of farmsteads and things. And then the monasteries came and set up huge granges for sheep farming. the White Peak was known for its wool. Quite a lot of it was exported to Italy. So there's a lot of history, and all that money that flowed in turned into this.
When they arrived, they colonised it quite, set up lots of different.
Oh, it's all right. That was me talking. So, and the money flowed in, and from that money, you got larger settlements. There's some beautiful, beautiful churches and some really idyllic little villages. And that's one of the main things about the White Peak, is the communities that are there. And it's a place, this is not an area for the walking epic. This is an area where you spend time and really enjoy the surroundings. Sit down in a meadow. There's lots of meadows that have been brought back into use now, and to sit in a meadow in springtime with all the flowers and the butterflies and everything is a real joy. So it's probably the times that we are in now, it's one of those areas that would benefit people, because it's a landscape that you enjoy at leisure, you savour it. And quite a lot of the walks, all of the walks cover points of interest. So there'll be some historical points, geological points, but there's also art and literature that's now coming into the White Peak. And so you've got people like Mark Goodwin, who's written poems, and Joe Deckums has actually produced sculptures that are on the White Edge, which is in the northern area of the White Peak. So you can go and see that. And there's the Sites of Meaning that's a little bit further down. There are 17 entrances to a village community that have all got sculptures at these entrances that were done as an art project. So it's really nice to see art and landscape starting to cohabit, really, because that's been something that's been a bit lacking in the Peak District. And I find that interesting. The dales are beautiful. They really are. To walk up some of the dale, the Wensley Dale, which is in one of the books, which is Wensley Dale, is a really beautiful dale to just walk up at leisure. It's very wide, lovely curving sides, and then you come up into this tiny little village it's got an odd quirk where there's a notice board with all the village houses that are noted on it, where they are and who lives there, which is really interesting. And actually, as we walked into it, there was a 1930s London bus just setting off from the village square, which was quite nice. So you get lots of that, lots of old villages. This is a very old landscape. You go into some of the churches where they've had the roofs re-leaded. They've found, when they've taken the old lead off, that the plumbers that put the lead on, the roofers, actually created little pieces of artwork on the reverse of the lead, and you can see some of that. And you go to places like Tissington, which is a medieval landscape. It's surrounded by ridge and furrow fields, but the village was generally rebuilt in the 1800s, but along the same lines, and it's been in the same family for 500 years. And this is where they started the well dressing, which is a big thing in the Peak District, and happens every year as a way of thanking nature, way of thanking the landscape for providing water for them, and thousands of people attend it. And then you've got such things like, it's still got a thriving market, cattle market, farm market, stalls in Bakewell that happens on a Monday. And that's a great experience to see that and buy some Bakewell pudding. There's no such thing as Bakewell tart, it's Bakewell pudding. Buy some of that from the original Bakewell pudding shop. So there's lots of things to do. There's lots of villages now that have second homes and holiday cottages and things, and that's a sad thing to see, because it means you're walking through villages during the week that are empty and quiet, which may suit some people, but it means that communities aren't aren't thriving, and that's something that needs to be addressed. So it's a very much a changing landscape at the moment that has good things, but it also has issues that need to be addressed, which are the same issues that you see in any other national park. Sorry, Scout. This is Scout, by the way. Come on, back up here. Come on. Okay. This is Scout. That's my my working search dog. He's actually got a little bit of a scuff on his carpal paw, so we're just keeping him shielded so he doesn't lick it. But yeah, so Scout's been on all the walks in the White Peak. He did every single one of these. And in fact,
Scout has a lot of fans at Cicerone Press. Everybody who works at Cicerone loves Scout, and we really enjoy getting updates of how he's doing. Beautiful, beautiful pictures of Scout sitting in fields and just looking lovely. So yeah, I think lots of people will be grateful that he is joining us for this little webinar.
He's very good at his job, and but he's a very gentle dog and quite intelligent. And he probably does at least twice, if not 3 times, the distance that I do when we do a walk, because he's toing and froing and things. And generally, he will be off the lead, but in lambing times and that, he will be on the lead. He is fully stock trained, so he has no interest in the sheep. But putting him on a lead around such times just gives farmers a little bit of a rest from having to worry about things. And that's one of the things about the White Peak. It is a working, lived-in landscape, and people have to be aware of that. The other thing they have to be aware of is styles. There are thousands and thousands of styles. This can make walking times a bit of a farce, really. If you've got a group of people, there's one particular walk where there are 31 squeeze styles. For some bizarre reason, the National Park have decided to put gates at the other side of each squeeze style. So you have to squeeze through a style, which is very narrow, and then open a gate. And there's 31 in a line on one particular walk. And I once took a group of people through there, and it was taking about 30 seconds to get through each style, and there was 26 people in that group. And it took us about half an hour to walk across these fields.
I'm always grateful, actually, on a trail race, if there's a style, because there's usually a massive queue, and I just go to the back of the queue and just wait there and get a breather. I'm like, it's totally fine. I'll just stay at the back. So I'm quite grateful for a few styles.
Yeah. There are lots of old ways across the peak as well, and there lots of. It was a big mining area, a big lead mining. The Romans found lead and started mining it. Down in an area near called Bonsall, which is where the old man. There's the packaging for the book, and that's the old man of Bonsall, the Toad Man of Bonsall, and he was and that's a miner, and so you get lots of green lanes. There's lots of green lanes, and there's lots of mines. The most famous is the Magpie Mine, which is a fantastic structure. Well worth a visit at any time, but really good to visit in sunrise or sunset. You get some superb views, and actually visiting a time to visit the White Peak. Spring is very nice, summer is lovely, and autumn are really good. In winter, because it's pasture on limestone, it can get extremely muddy, very muddy. But there is one time in winter when it's worth going, and that's after there's been a lot of snow, because it is a beautiful landscape in snow. I once led a group into Dovedale, which is the western book, which is White Peak West, so it'll be in the next book to come out. But it had snowed heavily, so much so that there were 15-foot drifts. This is 2013. And we couldn't really do the walks that we were going to. We were staying at near Thorpe. So we decided to walk up Dovedale, and we were the first people into Dovedale. I talk about this in the book. We were the first people in there. And it was just a white blanket. There were no footmarks or anything. All that was a robin that was hopping around against the white snow. And it was just like walking into Narnia. It was absolutely beautiful. And we all walked up the 3-mile length in complete silence. And it really was a magical thing. So in snow, the White Peak is truly magnificent. It really comes into its own. So springtime, summertime and autumn, absolutely fantastic. Winter when there's snow, wonderful. It can be a bit of a pain in extremely wet weather. Gets boggy, that's basically. It gets very very muddy. And the other big advantage is there are quite a lot of pubs that do meals as well. So you can, quite a lot of the walks have a pub generally at the end or halfway along. And that's something that is very different to the Dark Peak. Dark Peak is pretty bereft of people. And walking the White Peak means that you can do a 6-mile walk in an afternoon and then visit a pub in the evening for a meal and things. You can, there's nothing wrong with just walking to one part of the walk, say walking to the Minninglow circle, which is on high ground, which is an old Neolithic burial chamber, which is very nice, and then popping down to one of the pubs that surround it. So in Parsley and places like that. So yeah, it's a very nice landscape. I don't know if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Yeah, we've got loads of questions, but I have to say you've answered a few of them already, because I was going to ask a bit more about the well dressings. When can people see the well dressings?
There's they differ, and it's all coordinated around when Easter comes. So what we've done is we put a link in the book that takes you to a website where they all are. They tend to start around Easter time, Ascension Day. That's the Tissington one, but they go on throughout the year until about September. So there's different ones, and the well dressings are all on. They'll have a theme. Quite often there's biblical themes, but at other times there'll be themes that are based on the community or the landscape. There's one in the book. Last year it was Jimi Hendrix. It was Woodstock. It was the 50th anniversary, was it, of Woodstock, something like that. And there's been the moon landing. So they're really good. And all these are made in secret by the villagers. And then they're brought out and they last for 7 days. And they're actually petals that are pressed into clay, soft clay. So they last for 7 days and then they're removed. Tissington's probably the most prominent. It's got 7 wells that feed the village. It's a very nice village. Sir Richard Fitzherbert, whose family owns it, and that he's always around. He's serving in the cafe and all them kind of things, and he's a very approachable chap and very knowledgeable as well. But most of the villagers will have them, and there's 1 or 2 other places that have now decided to have their own well dressings as well in modern times. So they're well worth going to see.
Yeah, they look really interesting. So for people that might not know where the White Peak is, can you just tell us where is it and how easy is it to get to from various places?
There you go. So it starts there. So I know this sounds really simple, but it starts where the Dark Peak finishes. And I know that sounds... it starts on the outskirts of Sheffield. There is some gritstone in it. You're working just south of Kinderscout, just south of Hathersage, and it goes down to Eyam, which is the National Trust estate down near Thorpe. And in between that, you have gritstone edges. So you've got Froggatt Edge and Kerber Edge and White Edge and all those. You've got Robin Hood Stride, which is again is gritstone, which is heading down towards Matlock. The major centres you've got in there are Matlock and Bakewell. And of course you've got Eyam, which is the plague village, which is well worth a visit. full of a huge amount of history, and very, very, very busy in summer. Is Eyam, very, very busy. It's pronounced Eyam, but it's spelled E-Y-A-M, Eyam, but pronounced Eyam. So you've got major centres, Matlock and Matlock Bath, which is one of the newer, if you like, still a few hundred years old, centres of communities down there. And that's where the industrial, along with Cromford, that's where the Industrial Revolution started, where Arkwright built his first mills in secret down there. So you can go and see that. You can go and see the first mill that was ever built in the world, and that started the factory system and started the industrial revolution. Moving further north, you've got around Grindleford, you've got a lot of the millstone quarries, so you can go and see the millstones and all that kind of thing. And then you've got unusual places like David Mellor's cutlery works, where you can go and see a proper cutlery works from David Mellor, who one of the Britain's top designers, and Hathersage, and then moving along, you go to the Roman fort at Brough, and then once you get to Eyam, you start to leave Gritstone behind, and the limestone starts then, and you start to move down to places like Bakewell and Moniash. You gradually work your way south until you've got through Tissington, and you end up at Thorpe, which is the most southerly point. I add a little bit on and go down to Ashbourne, which is where they play football for a whole day on Shrove Tuesday. It's the Shrove Tuesday football game, and the whole town, the uppers and downers, play a game of football, and the idea is to get the ball into one of the pubs that's at either end of the village, and it's a proper scrum. People get injured and all sorts of things. So it's a bit like the cheese roll. It's a bit like the Derbyshire cheese rolling, only it's football. So yeah, it's a really nice area. It's a very broad area in terms of access. You've got some rail access up into Darley Dale and the likes, but really the rail has disappeared from the White Peak. So it's still got bus connections, but it's mainly travelling in by road to the main centres, which are Bakewell and surrounding villages, Matlock surrounding villages, and there's huge amounts of accommodation, from youth hostels, camping, to B&Bs, to hotels, to cottages, holiday cottages. So there's lots for everybody to do. There's plenty for children to do. You can go down Bagshore Mine, Bagshore Caves, and go potholing. You can go down some mines. You can go up Crich Tower, and apparently you can see Russia from Crich Tower, which is, I've heard that story on so many different places, but you can definitely see Lincoln Cathedral on the East Coast, which is very nice. So yeah, so there you go.
And how difficult are the walks? You said there's plenty for children, but
yeah,
is there something, literally, is there something for everybody? Is there a beginner's walk and a more advanced walk?
Yes, there is. There are 4 walks that include trails, and they're very interesting. You can go through the Monsell tunnels, which children like, and whoop and make noises and everything. You can go across the Monsell Viaduct, which is quite an impressive structure. So there's trails which are flat, and you can take your bikes and things like that. All of the walk, this is gentle countryside. There's no huge, despite the Peak District being called the Peak, there is one peak which is in Thorpe Cloud, which is well worth going up onto the top of, because of the views are fantastic. But this is not there's one walk that has a very steep descent, and that's from Shelton. All the rest are very gentle. So what I've tried to do is plan the walks so from each centre, from each community, so from Bakewell or from Hathersage, there are at least 3 walks. There's an easy walk, there's a medium walk, and there's a walk where you're going to stretch your legs. So I've tried to include, so that if people wanted to go for a mini break, they've got a good choice for each day.
Yeah, and if they wanted to walk everything, they'd have to be there for a month, because there's a massive 42 walks in this book, which, going by the current price on our website, works out at 27p a walk. So, that's got to be a bargain, 27p. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so it's quite easy to get to. There's loads of different options.
It's easy to get to. It's got good road links. There's some rail links that can take you into there. There's buses. There's public transport. All of this information is on websites that are in the book. Everything with the sort of environment that we're in at the moment, both in terms of the corona, but also the economy. Everything's very fluid, so it's well worth checking. There was the Peak District used to have a bus that used to putter around the different villages, and I've seen recently where that's had to be cancelled because of the corona and won't be back until the following year. So at the moment, it's best to check with the tourist information centres. The main one is in Bakewell, and that's well worth checking everything with them.
Yeah, because we're launching the book now, but we're not recommending people go and do these walks at the moment. It's just, you can buy the book and do some research, and then hopefully when this is all over, we can all get back out to the hills again. Yeah,
I mean, there's I think the population of the whole of the Peak District is 38,000 people, and there are small communities, but there's very little in terms of infrastructure for hospitals and things like that around. So anything that happens has a massive impact. So at the moment, the chances of something going wrong are a lot higher than what they normally would be. So it's best that we stay away from the places until we have a much clearer view of where we're going.
Yeah. And we will keep people updated as well on the Cicerone Press website and Facebook and by email and all that sort of thing. We're doing our best to sort of keep up with the news and recommendations as well. So where can people buy the book? I know they can buy it through Cicerone direct if they want to, but they can buy it through you as well, can't they?
Yes, you can buy it through me, which it comes gift wrapped with some words and things, and it's also signed and numbered from me, and you can get that link by visiting my Twitter page. Yeah,
and we can share that afterwards as well.
Yeah. So and I do that every time we do a book. I think it's a nice way of just adding a little bit extra into things, and it makes it personal. Quite a few people have requested little messages in and things like that, so that's really nice. And a lot of people that bought dark peak walks have also bought white peak walks because they're wanting to. If you look on social media, the walks tend to be known as PB Walk number 33 now, PB Walk 17, which is really nice. And that just happened to happen. And every now and again, you'll get somebody who'll say, "What's these PB Walks?" And they'll say, "Oh, you need Paul Besley's book. This is it." And that's fantastic because that means people are getting enjoyment out of it and they're getting some real value. And it means that we've done a good job.
Yeah, nothing to do with bribing everybody with cake last time you had a book launch.
No, and that's the sadness. When we did Dark Peak, we had the book launch on Derwent Edge in a storm, in an actual storm. About 50 people turned up. Somebody brought cake with an image of the book on it, which was absolutely fantastic. Cole Wood and Corin Wood and even their little bit, they walked along with Luca. They walked along with this fantastic cake, which was superb. And and we held this book launch in this absolute hell of a day on Derwent Edge, and it was right. And we were going to do the same thing, exactly the same thing, only hopefully much better weather. But that's all had to be cancelled now.
Yeah, it's not that we're obsessed, but publishing does run on cake.
Yeah. Well, yes. Mountain Rescue does as well.
Yeah. Right, we've got a question from Vivian. What's your favourite walk in the book and why?
I really like it's the most southerly walk, and it takes in Thorpe and Thorpe Cloud, and it visits a series of villages that have all got beautiful churches, and it's Thorpe's got a really nice Norman church, and it's a tiny little village just in nowhere. And yet you can see arrow marks on the entrance to the church where they sharpened arrows, and the gravestones have got some really funny, for want of a better way of putting it, but really funny sayings on them about how the person lived their life and things. And it's that human connection, that human history that is what I'm really interested in. And it's a gentle walk. It's a beautiful walk. There's a photograph, I think it's in the book, that we took in February of last year, and we were sat in t-shirts, and it was absolutely glorious in a field, on a hillside, in t-shirts, really glorious. I do enjoy that. That is probably my favourite walk.
Perfect. We've got a comment from Al, not a question, but a comment saying that he's a geologist, so he's really enjoying all the sort of rock facts. So I'm glad that that's appealing to some people, because other people could find that a little bit dull, but I am also a bit of a rock geek.
Well, one of the things you have to do when you're down in the Walk Peak is you look for a Derbyshire Screw, which is a crinoid. I think there's a photograph in the book of them there, and they were what made up the limestone, and quite often you get them there, and they look like a screw thread, and they're known as Derbyshire Screws, and you quite often get them on footpaths and stiles. So that's one of the things to look out for. But there is a wealth of geology down there. There's still a bit of coal around, there's some shale, there's gritstone, and obviously the limestone, and it is fantastic.
Fab. And then we've got a bit of consternation actually about Bakewell pudding. What's going on with Bakewell pudding and Bakewell tart?
Yeah, it's Bakewell pudding, not Bakewell tart. It's Bakewell pudding. They get very excited. And there are two original pudding shops. There are two original Bakewell pudding shops in Bakewell. Yes, both completely separate businesses, but they were both the original, apparently. So you have to be careful which one you say what to. But yeah, they get quite excited in Bakewell if you call it a tart.
Right. You look like an off-comer if you say the wrong word.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I think that's all the questions. I'll just quickly check if there's any more. Have you got any on your Twitter?
Oh, let's have a look.
And again, if anyone's joined us and they've missed a bit, we can put this on YouTube.
No, I've got nothing on Twitter. Not yet.
Okay. I mean, people can, if they've ever got questions for you and for all our authors, they can actually let us know at any time, and we will pass them on to the author and get an answer for you. So it's no problem if you turn up to this late and you're watching it not live, then just let us know your questions and we can still ask Paul, and we can put that on Facebook or whatever. Okay, so I think if that's it, just lots and lots of plugs for more information in the book. There's everything you need to go walking is in that book. So please have a look at cicerone.co.uk to buy the book, or buy it from Paul himself and you'll get it beautifully gift wrapped. But that's it. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think it's all right.
And
Scout. Yeah, we love Scout. Well done, Scout. You're a very good boy. All right. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.